Welcome back, viewers. Today we're diving into the tumultuous events that shaped the Arab world in what became known as the Arab Spring. A wave of protests, demonstrations, and uprisings, the Arab Spring swept across the Middle East and North Africa, forever changing the course of history. This monumental shift was fueled by the desire for freedom, democracy, and social justice. It's a complex, multifaceted story that continues to unfold even now. So buckle up as we unravel the story of the Arab Spring. Our story kicks off in Tunisia, where a young street vendor named Mohamed Bouazizi lit the fuse. Bouazizi, a simple man trying to make ends meet, was pushed to his limit by the harsh realities of unemployment and incessant police harassment. One day, in a tragic act of protest, he set himself on fire. This desperate cry for help was not in vain. It echoed through the streets of Tunisia, resonating with a public that had long suffered under the same oppressive conditions. People from all walks of life took to the streets, their collective voice growing louder with each passing day. They demanded an end to corruption, unemployment, and the authoritarian regime that had held them down for too long. It was a wave of change, a call for freedom that couldn't be ignored. His act of desperation resonated with the public and triggered a wave of demonstrations demanding political change. Fueling these protests was the power of social media. In a world increasingly interconnected through the internet, the Arab Spring was a testament to the influence of digital platforms. Social media sites like Facebook and Twitter emerged as powerful catalysts for change during this time. These platforms offered a space for people to voice their discontent, share their stories, and call others to action. But it wasn't just about sharing, it was about organizing. In the face of state-controlled media and stringent censorship, social media became the go-to platform for coordinating protests and demonstrations. It allowed for real-time updates, making it possible for people to stay informed and mobilize quickly. In essence, social media gave the ordinary citizen a voice, a way to express their grievances and rally for change. It was a paradigm shift in how revolutions were orchestrated. The Arab Spring was a digital uprising, marking the rise of the citizen journalist. Platforms like Facebook and Twitter became powerful tools for coordination and mobilization, allowing citizens to organize and share their grievances. As the Tunisian regime crumbled, the spirit of revolt spread. Next stop, Egypt. The land of the pharaohs found itself in the throes of a seismic political shift. President Hosni Mubarak, a fixture in Egyptian politics for 3 decades, found his iron grip loosening. The people had had enough. Human rights abuses, corruption, economic woes. The list of grievances was long. The Egyptian public, emboldened by events in Tunisia, took to the streets in a show of force and unity. Protesters from all walks of life, students, workers, intellectuals, housewives, everyone joined hands. They wanted change, freedom, and a say in their future. The protests grew in size and intensity, with chants of "bread, freedom, social justice" echoing through the cities. As the pressure mounted, Mubarak tried to placate the masses, but it was too late. The iconic Tahrir Square in Cairo became the focal point of mass protests against President Hosni Mubarak's 3-decade-long rule. From Egypt, we moved to Libya, where Colonel Muammar Gaddafi faced widespread dissent. The Libyan uprising was a robust and violent response to a regime that had been in power for over 4 decades. As the situation escalated, the international community couldn't just stand by. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, stepped in, establishing a no-fly zone to protect civilians from Gaddafi's forces. Their intervention was decisive. Aided by NATO's airstrikes, the rebels were able to push back against Gaddafi's forces, eventually leading to the fall of the regime. But this intervention was not without controversy. Critics argued that NATO had overstepped its mandate, transforming a humanitarian mission into a regime change operation. And while the fall of Gaddafi was hailed as a victory for the revolution, the aftermath was far from ideal. The conflict, however, left Libya in chaos. The country, lacking a strong central government, descended into a state of civil war that continues to this day. Syria became another flashpoint. As the spirit of revolt ignited by the Arab Spring swept across the region, Syria found itself in the eye of the storm. The initial peaceful protests against President Bashar al-Assad's regime were met with escalating violence, leading the country down a path of no return. The government's brutal response to dissent tipped the scale, transforming the protests into a full-blown civil war. This conflict, unlike any other, would not only reshape the country, but also leave an indelible mark on the world conscience. As the civil war intensified, the Syrian people bore the brunt. From the ancient city of Aleppo to the capital Damascus, the nation was plunged into an abyss of devastation. The world watched in horror as the humanitarian crisis unfolded. Millions were displaced, and countless lives were lost. The world witnessed the heartbreaking humanitarian crisis as the conflict raged on. As we reflect on the Arab Spring, it's essential to acknowledge both its successes and setbacks. This period was a crucible that brought out some of the best and worst in human nature. It was a time of hope, courage, and resilience, where ordinary people dared to challenge the status quo and demand a better future. In some places, these demands bore fruit. We saw transitions towards democracy, as in Tunisia, where the seeds of revolt first sprouted. These nations experienced a profound shift, breaking free from the shackles of repression and stepping into the light of democratic governance. Yet the Arab Spring was not a universal success story. Many countries grappled with prolonged instability, as the fight for change triggered power vacuums and conflict. In others, the hope of revolution was snuffed out by even more repressive regimes, leaving citizens worse off than before. While some countries experienced transitions towards democracy, others faced prolonged instability, and a few slipped into even more repressive regimes. In the end, the Arab Spring was a complex tapestry of hope, resilience, and challenges. It was a pivotal moment in history that sent ripples across the globe, reshaping the political landscape of the Middle East and North Africa. Its reverberations are still felt today, reminding us of the enduring human spirit and its quest for freedom, dignity, and justice. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the pages of history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more insightful content.